let's say, suspended, not that they've canceled the strike.
Mm.
Prior to this time, 1 week to today, the NLC had threatened that they would go through all their offices nationwide in the 36 states and shut down the nation on account of the incessant scarcity of fuel and Naira,
Mm.
especially on the Naira side. So they had written to the CBN. Their protest was going to be at the CBN offices nationwide with a bid that why, despite the court ruling, to extend the deadline to the 31st of December this year, that CBN had not pumped adequate cash into the market because, with the CBN's position of the Naira redesign and the withdrawal policy, the third aspect of that, or the third objective, was to stem vote buying. Okay, we've done and finished elections, both presidential and state. So why is cash still not flowing, right? I mean, that's the logical flow that we would expect. But if you go to banks currently nationwide, you will see horrendous queues. I myself have not been able to enter my bank within the past 2 weeks from the election. After the election, I still can't enter. When I entered, when they pointed the queue to me, I was like, there is no point. Now, this is even Lagos, talk less of upcountry or where you call the north, south, and eastern
Mm.
states where you don't have such concentration of bank branches. So the NLC said that they would be protesting to ensure that the CBN complies with the court ruling. However, in a meeting that was held yesterday with the National Working Committee of the NLC, they sat together and confirmed that the CBN had complied to, let's say, to the tune of 50% with their request, and that queues have started reducing in bank halls. And because of that, they were going to suspend it for 2 weeks because they were not sure whether the CBN was playing a fast one, maybe just for 1 week, and then they come back to queues. That in some places queues have even emerged again. So
Mm.
they would be steadily watching from HD lens for the next 2 weeks to ensure that the CBN stays consistent with this recirculation of cash within the market. Likewise, in the same instance, I think the fuel queues have reduced to some extent, not completely, but it's not as bad as before. Now, the question here is the Ministry of Employment and Labor that Chris Ngige was speaking in a positive tune, that he was sure that that strike would not hold,
Mm-hmm.
given the fact that they had already had some level of understanding and agreement. Now, the point is this: should uh, we have the NLC striking or threatening to strike because of something that the CBN, who literally is an institution of its own, should be able to adjust and monitor? Yes, all we want to see is cash flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, I think the CBN, as a monetary institution, needs to speak to, let's call it, the project management. Meaning, remember the time they took all our cash, they asked us to deposit in the name of collecting a new note. They gave us deadlines. They told us, oh, you can go here and here, etc., and deposit. Banks will be open on Saturday. In this instance, now that you're recirculating, come out with a plan. Let's know. Don't keep us in limbo. Don't tell us, oh, cash is flowing, and then we're asking how much did you flow. We don't. It doesn't need to get to that. Just let us know this is your distribution to get us back to where we were before, when we were not queuing, when we were not complaining, when we were not frantically screaming at banks as to why the apps were not working, or reconciliation, or my money was debited, I have not gotten it back, I sent money. Just give us a timeline. Let's work with that. I think that would be the best way forward for Nigeria.
All right. Don't forget the WhatsApp number is 0809 We're moving on to Punch. Now, the national chairman of the PDP, Iyocha Ayu, who stepped aside from his position on Tuesday, is set to fight his suspension by Benue State High Court. IU Special Assistant on Communication disclosed this shortly after the party had announced the appointment of the Deputy National Chairman, Umar Damagun IU, as the acting National Chairman.
Okay, so this story is a combination of the back and forth um, of the past 2 years since he came on board as the chairman of PDP. And the news we hear on the street was that there was a gentleman agreement sometime that if if the chairman comes from the north, then the presidential candidate will come from the south, and then all of those that happened. So we are now where we are now.
Mm.
And you know the way the structure of politics in Nigeria is that you are a member of a political party by joining from your ward. So it is now his ward that has suspended him. Guess what? For what? For anti-party activities and not paying of his dues. When I read the story, I first laughed at those two things. Pray, what constitutes anti-party activities? When did they wake up to realize that he has been involved in anti-party activities? That's the most important question in all of this. Then the second question is that, okay, so of all the politicians we have in this country today, of all the parties we have in this country today, how many of them actually have dues that they specified dues that they pay? Where is it in their constitution that says that as a member, every month or every week or every year, this is your annual due? And can they give us a register of members that have paid these dues to date? So when you look at some of these things, you just realize that it is just the politics of it that, okay, so we don't want you, and then what is the nearest that we can use to get you out of the place? And then we use the big encompassing phrase anti-party activities. And then this introduction of not paying dues is possibly a new one to me. I'm not sure that in my experience with politics in Nigeria that at least in the last since 1999 that any of the parties that we had in this country have it in their constitution that they pay dues and how much it is and when it is due and the punishment for not paying those dues. So but we know that this is just politics playing out. Now the thing about it is that when you look at it from the context of the PDP itself, the rule is that when a city national chairman is, for whatever reason, leaves office, when their tenure is not up, it is the deputy national chairman from the zone where the chairman comes from that will act in his stead. So the agitation in itself that the presidential candidate coming from the south and chairman from the north or vice versa hasn't gone away, because now if he leaves, the person who replaces him will be the deputy national chairman from the north. So the chairmanship position still stays in the north, the presidential candidate still stays in the north. So the problem itself has not gone away. But here we are, we're seeing politics. And the important, another important thing here is that whether we like it or not, the PDP is a significant national institution that we cannot wish away, that we cannot ignore what is happening in it. So that is the reason I'm thinking this is making a news headline. Otherwise, I would have said it's a family affair and then they could just go and treat it the way they wanted. But we can't wish it away. The PDP is big in this country. It's been a significant part of our life for the past 24, 25 years. And I wish them well in solving this. I like it that he's obeyed the court's injunction that he stands suspended and that he's going to challenge it and that he's not using it to cause any trouble individually. Then I would then wish him to call his supporters to order that it's also right to protest, but they should do it in a civilized way that it will not cause any form of harm or disturbance to the rest of the people.
All right, let's move on to this headline from Daily Trust. Now, reps caution on bill seeking creation of Almajiri. Civil Society Coalition for Transparency and Good Governance advised the House of Reps against creating an agency for Almajiri education and out-of-school children. Now, we gave this advice at a press conference in Abuja ahead of the public hearing on the bill. Now, Victor Udo, who was speaking on behalf of the coalition, said creating multiple agencies that address same issues instead of enhancing the capacity of the existing ones is counterproductive.
Yes, very, 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 very important. The Civil Society Coalition for Transparency and Good Governance, that's a civil service organization, a CSO, has been speaking strongly about advising the House of Reps against any move to pass a bill on seeking the creation of Almajiri schools. Now, what they were saying was that two agencies exist already that cover this. That's the Universal Basic Education Commission, and then the National Commission for Mass Literacy Adult Non-Formal Education. Now, their objective was that the House should be more concerned about improving funding, leadership, and the mandate of and capacity building of these agencies already than trying to create another one, might I add, trying to politicize it. Now, let's break it down a bit so that people understand what is the umbrella issue here. Education. We don't have time to discuss how critical, crucial education is to the manpower development of Nigeria. When you talk about development, you see, when you talk about Dubai, you talk about Singapore, you talk about America, South Africa, Tokyo, that didn't come because horses fell from heaven. Some people were educated. Either they were, or they hired them, or they imported them into their country. Now, in this instance, what is the Nigerian situation? We have an illiteracy rate. If I'm not sure, the last time I checked was around 40%. I think it's actually at 60%. And what is illiteracy? That's the inability of an individual to read or write. We have a huge population that is illiterate. That is fact. It's unfortunate, but it's fact. Secondly, we have the undereducated, meaning people who have not even gotten to secondary school. So the universal basic education, which is supposed to be free education at primary school level, hasn't been that effective. That's despite the fact that government has created cover for Nigerian citizens. It's not yielding complete fruit. That's talk less of all the other school feeding programs that are meant to even encourage that. Now, you have out of school children. The last count was at, I mean, between the last 10 years, it moved from about 7 million to 20 million, given the United UNESCO figures that we heard last time. Now, that's 20 million children are out of school, either just wandering around or trading, right? You now have, what do you call it? Now, the Almajiri aspect comes under a faith based type of education. Now, that is already covered under our school programs because you have faith based schools, either Christian,
Okay.
Muslim, traditional, whichever. So we don't necessarily have to create an agency to address this. The only issue here is that instead of being politicized, there are those who have debated that the Almajiri school system needs to be enhanced in terms of their curriculum, that it shouldn't just be on the religious basis. They should have some, what do you call it? Some, let's use the word orthodox training in terms of having a wide range of
Skill.
subjects
Okay.
for those students to learn so that they can be useful and productive when they come into society. Now, remember, there was a big political, would I even call it political? That's where terrorism came in with Boko Haram. Boko was,
Mm-hmm.
uh, please help me here.
Western education.
No, Western
Haram.
education is forbidden.
Mm.
Now, you see that there's a bit of politics involved here. But my point is, if we are going to expand and develop our regions, okay, especially the youth who form the manpower for tomorrow, we're going to have to ensure that we do it strategically and we ensure that the right allocations and funding go to especially these two agencies. If you can equip your young ones, you're sure that your future is secure.
Quick
All
one.
right.
Let me just quickly say that Nigeria illiteracy rate is 31%,
Mm-hmm.
according to federal government of Nigeria,
Which year was that?
From last year.
from last year. And then the second thing also that when we define illiteracy,
Mm-hmm.
I like to define it in the context of what does it really mean. Um, it does not necessarily mean that you cannot read and write, and that's all it is. It suggests that so if I can speak Spanish and I live in Nigeria, you give me English and I can't read it, does that mean that I'm not literate?
No, that's different
So
now.
so in defining illiteracy, we need to go, take it beyond just read and write. That can you make sense out of what you have read and written? So we should add that to defining our illiteracy because
No,
that is
but
what the problem really
there's a
is.
standard meaning for illiteracy globally. When English is the lingua franca, so what we're saying here is, can you read and write? I mean, if there were people who could speak and read Yoruba or Hausa or Igbo and they could get by in their business, would we say they're literate?
Yes, because they can read and write in one language, because that's a reference to it. That's why I said it's not enough to read and write, but you can make sense of what you
Yeah.
have written and read.
Yes, but we don't have that basis of communication in this country. So that's why I'm saying you can call some of those people undereducated in the sense that they're not educated in the form of communication in that country. But in terms of illiteracy, there are millions of people who cannot read, who have not had any proper form of education. That's why you now have the National Commission for Mass Literacy, Adult and Non-Formal Education, to ensure that if they're past 20 and above,
Send them to that school.
yes, send them to those schools to pick up some form of skill, even at their mature ages.
All right, let's go on to some of the messages coming through. Yomi from Surulere. Yomi, that is Yomi's message right there. Okay, I'll just take this. And let's start off with Idima Puza. He says it's not new that parties chairmen are booted out on the flimsy excuses. Have you forgotten how Oshomole was booted out by his ward's chairman? It's the politicking style in Nigeria. Yomi says the switch where the interim chairman is from the PDP is why the PDP will keep losing elections. Wike was right about Atiku and Ayu's position with regards rotation. Let's take a quick break. We'll continue the conversation on the other side. This is Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1.
98.1.
What am I hearing? He's always up. But I'm hearing a random song.
There was no music. That was
Yeah, you were
playing.
hearing it,
I
right?
was hearing it. You saw
It's
it?
not from
There was
here.
no music was playing.
Like
I
in
thought it was from my
Nigerian-
phone. Nigerian song.
Yeah, it was the
I didn't
Nigerian
hear.
song.
I had it.
And it was really loud in my ear.
You had it.
Yeah, I heard
You
it.
had it outside. I had it.
Then you have to tell them about this.
Me, I had it. Sha.
Something. There's nothing playing, only the bed is playing. I actually thought it was a phone in the studio. Can I? Yeah, I can pick it. It was a Nigerian thing, like it was Nigerian. I don't know because I was trying to focus,
No, but I had it, Sha.
but it sounded like a Nigerian kind of music with lyrics.
First money joint closest to you. First money, close and simple. You first. First back.
This is Smooth 98.1.
Just mute it in case something is playing from YouTube or anything. Smooth 98.1, love music, love life. This is Freshly Pressed, and Zibby here with our analysts this morning, Lakunle and Devoe. We see your messages coming through. Please keep them coming. The WhatsApp number is 0809 440 981. You can also tweet at Smooth981 and catch the live stream as well. Okay, let's go on to this article, and it comes from Punch. Niger Delta ex-militants stormed the main gates to the National Assembly in Abuja to protest the non-payment of their allowances since the inception of the interim administrator of the Presidential Amnesty Program, Major General Barry Ndiomo.
Okay, so this is another of the programs that or projects that we as Nigerians always get into and never know when to exit. Okay, so this started in 2007, 2007 or 2008, when President Umar Shehu Yar'Adua championed the amnesty program to get the Niger Delta militants out of the creeks, get them to schools, give them jobs in the government ministries and agencies, and so that we can improve and with other promises, including cleanup of several areas that there have been oil pollution and all that. Okay, so and I thought that at that time, I can't recall properly. I think that it was supposed to be for a 10-year period, and that in those 10 years, it was assumed that everybody would have been probably integrated either through school. Many were sent abroad to learn and in aviation schools, to regular schools, master's program here and there. Some of them were placed on salaries. Some of them were given jobs in ministries and all that. So And this spread across, I think, about 5 or 7 states, 5 to 7 states, all the Niger Delta states. Now, so that we still have that program ongoing at this point in time, I'm wondering what exactly are we still doing with it? Is it 10 years? It's been 20, it's been 14, 18, 15 years now. 2007 to now should be like 15 years. Yeah, this is the 16th year. So if in 16 years we have not cleaned up that mess that resulted in having to grant to do that amnesty program, what have we been doing in all those years that we're still where we are, and we are sustained that, and here we are where we are complaining that the government doesn't have money, and the monies that we could have saved, we are still using it to fund this thing. It's unfortunate that the things that we were supposed to have done, I was one of those people who, from day one, had never agreed that that was a solution to the problem. I didn't think that it was going to. I didn't even think it was going to be like this. I just thought that we were setting a precedence that we would not be able to sustain in 2007, and this action now is probably just proving me right. Because okay, so we'll continue this till when? When are we going to stop this? When would we have said that, okay, we have completely done this? The ones we sent abroad to go to school, have they completed their education in 17 years? The ones that are in ministry, are we saying that aside from their salaries, they are still earning this? These ones that they are not earning these allowances, what were they doing? What are they doing? Are they just sitting at home and getting allowances, or what exactly? These things are not so clearly defined what it is. Those, particularly those ones that were sent to schools, where are they? Where is the register? What have they done since they left school? So if anybody has gone to any school, let's say the person started from primary one, in 17 year in how many years again?
2009.
2007 to date. Let's say 2008 to date. That has 16 years. So let's say the person started primary one 16 years ago. You should have finished university by now, shouldn't it? 6 years, 6 years, 4 years, right? So what exactly it is that we still have this program ongoing? At the beginning, emotions were high that it was justifiable. Yes, let's get them to stop. Let's pay them money. Let's do that. Yes, but when is it ever going to stop? That is the question I have about it.
All right, let's see. Fabian says, I hope the Niger Delta militants' protest will make the government thoroughly think through the present Boko Haram reintegration and other such programs, because history will repeat itself if we don't learn our lessons. Deji says, the failure of the CBN to achieve its own objectives is a reflection of very poor leadership structure, no sanctions or strategy. It all feels hopeless. Tile says legislature would ruin our national budget with the repeated creation of agencies. Or Orosai report recommended the merger of ministries and agencies, but we just want relevance and not impact. Let's move on to our next story, and this one comes from Premium Times. Now, the Nigerian army has formally dismissed a Reuters report of alleged mass abortions carried out by the military on victims of Boko Haram terrorism in the northeast. Chief of Army Staff Farouk Yahya issued a denial while testifying before a panel that was set up by the National Human Rights Commission to investigate the matter.
Yes, one of the thorny stories that's been ongoing for some time now. At about some time ago, Reuters International did release a report, a damning report, which spoke to the investigative feature on how Nigerian citizens that were captured by the terrorists, the insurgents, Boko Haram, many of them that were raped and impregnated by the insurgents, about 10,000 of them were under a secret program where, what I call it, illegally aborted by the military. And to that extent, it did gather some international outrage, especially with the United Nations, who, through the Secretary General Antonio Guterres, called the government, that's the Nigerian government, to carry out some level of investigation to remedy and bring about some level of accountability. To that extent, the federal government set up the panel on human rights violations and implementation of counterinsurgency operations in the Northeast, that's SIP Northeast, under the able chair of the Supreme Court Justice Abdu Aboki, who then set up a panel by the Human Rights Commission to investigate the matter. So that brings us to this scenario where they've been calling on various what I call it, players within that scenario, starting from the Chief of Army Staff Farouk Yahya, who had issued a denial saying that that never happened and that was baseless and false. That also included some repentant insurgents who also were brought on the panel, who had wives and children in that same season because of their new repentant status, were testifying that all their children who they got during that time when they were on the other side are alive. So where is that position of the Reuters coming from? Well, the truth is, a lot happens in war, especially for those who know how badly beaten and devastated the Northeast was, especially during this time. We hope that the military and the federal government, through this agency, is able to produce a report that can stand the test of time to either bring out the truth as to how these allegations have come. As you know, such allegations keep a negative stain on the country's reputation, especially in its ability to keep protocols and, as they call it, rules of engagement in conflict times and seasons.
All right, almost out of time, but we'll take a few messages. Tajuddin says, "Good morning. I know people that can read and write Arabic but cannot read or write English. Are they illiterate as well?" They would be functionally illiterate if or if the language that they speak cannot help them function in a society. So, but if they are in a society that people can understand, they can go about their business, then they wouldn't be classed as illiterate. Ajayi says the National Assembly has no business passing a bill to create an imaginary school. This should be left to individual states that desire such education. Tayo says PDP's internal crisis should not be aired outside, let alone get into this extent. But then again, men and their huge ego will never let them see the bigger picture. That is all the time that we have for Freshly Pressed this morning. Thanks for your messages. Thanks for listening, and special thanks to my analysts as well, Lakunle and Devoe. Do stay with us. There's a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.
First Bang.